What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
Chassis. Braking system brakes, both front and rear, on the Touareg are made with a good reserve, even on the basic versions with 3.0 TDI. And 3.6 FSI engines. There are large 330mm rotors, and 4-piston calipers are simple and reliable. More powerful versions with 4.2 FSI and 4.2 TDI engines have 360mm rotors and noticeably more capricious 6-piston calipers, prone to souring together or separately. They are very demanding to the quality of pads, and the original ones cost 150 to 200 euros. Electric handbrake here works for small drum pads, but each of the brake actuators costs 150 euros, and they sour on old cars often, after long periods of inactivity. And you need to keep an eye on the wiring to them. The connectors break very easily. Part original price of non-original 2 brakes front brake pads 10,091 85 963 Bosch 3 522 brake pads. Rear 10 630 Techstar 6 395 Mintex 1 704 brake disc front 330 by 32 6 408 87 673 Bosch 3 562 brake disc rear 330 by 28 6 286 86 369 Bosch 5 334 suspension. The suspension is fundamentally the same as on the first generation, but has become significantly lighter. At the same time, the lower cross arms are no longer aluminum, and in the rear suspension aluminum in the small arms was replaced by cast iron or steel. On resource it has affected not very much. At proper maintenance the mechanical part does not cause much trouble. The resource of hub bearings is usually about 150 to 200,000 mileage. The front suspension arms go about 80 to 120, good thing silent. Blocks are changed separately, and the ball joints are strong here, that in the lower, that in the upper lever. And even those skillful people have learned to repress, although with loss of resource. The rear suspension is even simpler. 2 non-original transverse upper link cost 20 euros a piece and last long enough. At the big arm silent blocks are again replaceable. On one side is standard, on the camber side, not standard. Subframe silent blocks are strong. Replacement is needed very rarely. The nuance is that there are a lot of cars on springs, but less than half of the circulation. Most of the cars have air suspension. In general, it works very well up to 5 years. Even in cars with storage on the street, there are few troubles due to corrosion of aluminum and brass elements. Pneumatic tubes are wiped rarely and mainly after off-road exploits. In the rear part the thermoshield can press them. The compressor of the system is not loaded much in case of correct operation, the block of valves too. The trick is that the company used a high-pressure receiver with dried nitrogen. If it is filled once in a year or two, and the air suspension hoses do not flow, the system works in closed mode, the load on all elements is minimal, and the chances of breakdown are negligible. Problems usually start after 5 to 6 years of use. The most desperate off-road enthusiasts may already have cylinders starting to leak. Dirt on the top head contributes to corrosion of the armature, and dirt in the bend of the sleeve rubs it. For those who just drive around Moscow and do not wash the arches regularly, with washing the cylinders in the upper position, the situation may be similar. But the chances are of course less. In general, even in the absence of proper care you can drive up to 10 years without serious changes in pneumatics. Only you will have to refill the cylinder often, the compressor will work regularly, and the valve block will be capricious. Although it is not the most trouble-free node as it is, sometimes it requires error reset after power failures or frost. Well, and the car will fall down at night parking. But who stopped it in our country? If on S-Class W221 you can often see pneumatics being pumped up through a separate fitting at gas stations, then on VW it is not shameful. However, it will be expensive to tidy up such car, the budget from 600 euros for one wheel, not counting expenses for works and compressor repair kit. For a car priced at 1.5 million rubles the costs are quite adequate, but nevertheless not too pleasant. Is it worth saying that the diagnostics of air suspension should be given maximum attention at purchase? Steering surprisingly enough, but steering control here with usual GUR and parametric rack servotronic, apparently, the status of Touareg in the table of ranks Volkswagen effects. But everything is set up decently. The car drives very well, almost as Cayenne, and better than most cars. The rack likes to knock and leak after 100,000 mileage. However, there are doubts here. Touareg is mercilessly twisted. And cases, when the car is in the same hands, and up to 300 plus no serious problems with the rack are not observed, are often met. However, for such longevity it is necessary to change liquid sometimes together with a tank. There is a filter in it, and not to forget. About service of the car as a whole, because any overheating of a system of hydraulic power steering because of a blocked by dirt. Radiator package leads to appearance of leakage of tubes. Transmission. Common problems. All vehicles are strictly four-wheel drive. There were simply no other options. The design includes transfer case, drive shafts, and gearboxes. There are two types of transfer cases, with reduction gear and asymmetrical differential and locking, or self-lock torsen in the base. Variant with locking and reduction gear is extremely rare. It was taken only for serious off-roading or moving heavy trailers on weak soils. So, if the car has such a box, it is worth to look at the condition of both the body and transmission more carefully. PTO shafts with gearboxes should also be included in this section. It would seem that these units should be reliable, especially since the oldest cars are just turning the first decade, but gearboxes, especially the rear one, have weak bearings. Already after 100 to 150,000 kilometers of mileage, they begin to luff and noise, and if you do not change them in time, they will pull behind them and the main pair. Repair is not that very expensive, but with related work less than 50,000 rubles for one axle usually does not come out. And if the main pair is dead, this budget will be spent only on basic spare parts. Cardan shafts do not last forever either. Constant unbalance due to poorly fastened weights and wear of the front drive shaft elements cause vibrations in the body. In addition, the shafts are not detachable. In repair require a specialized workshop with equipment, which increases the cost of work. And it is possible to face with vibrations even on warranty cars. Mechanical boxes. There are no mechanical boxes on this generation. In any case, in factory standard configurations. From time to time, there are variants of such cars with automatic transmission, but these are rather modifications or special chassis. Automatic gearboxes. There is only one automatic transmission here, which has a factory designation 0C8. In the world it is better known as Volkswagen Touareg SN. Actually, it is so indicated on the automatic transmission plate. Letter codes LSG, NAE, MHC, NAB, NAC, and MHN are all the same box in different variants for different motors with different gear ratios. And minimal changes in the mechanical part. It holds up to 850 to 1000 Newton-meters of torque, which is enough for all the motors in the Touareg. Unlike most other multi-stage, there is an emergency unlocking of the automatic transmission even in the absence of power. It is useful, because cars without this function cannot be rolled to a tow truck in case of what, it is necessary to call a crane. But the payback for this is a classic automatic transmission lever, not a newfangled joystick. Due to sharp reduction of time of GDT operation in normal mode and low working pressure, efficiency of such transmission is very high. The consequence of this is a pleasant tendency to reduce the temperature of the automatic transmission. It is heated mainly from the engine, in case of diesels, minimally. However, the oil thermostat on the radiator sometimes jams due to dirty oil, causing overheating of the box, and the heat exchanger is rather for heating the automatic transmission, not for cooling. Oil and filter life is not so clear-cut. The hydraulic converter, GDT, is blocked completely only during smooth driving and revolutions above 1000. At regular accelerations or at low traction the blocking works, but at 70 to 80%, which means that the lining is intensively erased, supplying dust to the automatic transmission oil. Asian hydraulic blocks traditionally do not like dirt very much. Oil with impurities eats out the material of the plate, so are neglected. Cases the replacement of solenoids will not do. It will be necessary to put REM kits. Fortunately, there are such on sale, both homemade and branded Sonax. The box is declared by Volkswagen itself as maintenance-free, and not very clever owners, which are surprisingly many, really try not to change oil in it, but it is necessary to do it often enough. At active driving, once in 30,000, at quiet driving, once in 60,000, though purely theoretically at prevalence of highway mode of movement it is possible to reach 120. The presence of torsional vibration dampers in the GDT is worth mentioning to the peculiarities of the gearbox, so that those who constantly drive in tension, the life of the torque converter may be limited not only by the life of the locking pads themselves, but also by the life of the damper spring liners. Especially it is actual for Diesel 4.2 with its steam engine traction and forced variants of Turbo Diesel 3.0. But the resource of GDT locking pads is very big. Even in races, the pads usually live above 200 to 250,000 kilometers of mileage. The cooling system of automatic transmission includes a heater and an external radiator with a thermostat. The heater works at the expense of coolant heat, and antifreeze supply to it goes at the expense of electric vacuum drive, which is not very reliable. Failures begin after 3 to 5 years of service, and sometimes due to broken vacuum line tubes. On cars with start-stop function and on the hybrid, the control unit of the electric pump is located in the right wheel well, as a result, the chances of failure of this unit are increased. The automatic transmission selector is located on its body, and, as usual in the case of off-road vehicles, this can cause problems due to leakage of both the connector and the selector itself. Mechanically, everything is good, for friction packs and two brakes have approximately equal service life. Planetary gears, despite the complexity, do not suffer from early wear, if you do not abuse towing heavy and large trailers at medium speed, when the intermediate gears are engaged for a long time, and do not operate the box with overheating and dirty oil. The most likely sign of problems is a current GDT oil seal. However, often this problem is not related to the breakdowns of the mechanics, and is caused by improper installation of the GDT itself. Some masters, when removing the engine or automatic transmission, for example, to replace the timing gear, leave the edge of the oil seal tucked inside, which causes leakage. A serviceable automatic transmission switches perfectly smoothly and seamlessly, so any jerks and shocks are a clear reason to think about the resource of the box and the cost of restoration, and it is very high. As for electronic diagnostics, the box is a typical mediocre. It is impossible to get a complete idea about the condition by scanner readings. But the brains have data on working time on each gear. Proceeding from them, it is possible not only to find out how much the mileage has been rolled off, but also to understand in what modes the car was moving. Four-wheel drive, the Touareg's transfer cases are both very robust. Touareg quietly withstands 350,000+ mileage. The variant with a free differential has no less resource, but lock drives and position sensors can cause troubles already at 50,000 mileage, especially if the transfer case got mud and reagents. But the problems are small and easily solved. Part original price of non-original 2 suspension and transmission front lower lever 21,995 BSG 12,227. Lemfeder 22,600 front upper lever 17,490 Febi 11,918 Lemfeder 14,779 front arm rear silent block 2,600 Febi 1,618 SKF 1,502 front. Hub repair kit 7,768 FAG 3,919 senior 4,215 upper arm silent block 817 Febi 637 Moog 887 front air strut 211 703 Bilstein 137 606 air. Traction 59 834 air bellows not available JTEC 25 413 air traction 32 230 motors. Common problems: lightening of the design almost did not affect the engines, although the engine compartment is smaller than in the first generation of the model. Radiators are denser, the automatic transmission has a more complex cooling system, and preheaters are often found even on basic gasoline engines. Add the need to remove the motors for quality timing service and you get high maintenance costs and increased chances of assembly or disassembly, errors, damage to fittings and wiring, fasteners, etc. Almost all engines have an electronic oil level gauge, which is convenient, but the trouble is that sometimes it malfunctions. Combined with oil consumption, this sometimes leads to big trouble. Gasoline motors. VR6. In fact, the main gasoline motor on the Touareg 7P is an inline-split 6-cylinder VR6 motor with a displacement of 3.6 litres. I've written before about the layout and history of these designs. This engine belongs to the latest generation of units. It is completely redesigned relative to the older 3.2-litre motors. It has a smaller camber angle, direct injection, phase control, and a completely new timing gear. Since 2011, even the power has been trimmed to a taxed 249 horsepower, which has made it very popular, eliminating the bias towards diesels in its predecessor. It's not a bad motor, if you forget about the intake valve corking, dirty intake in general, delicate rockers and not particularly Reliable timing mechanism on the flywheel side, with very delicate calipers that don't like old oils and prolonged operation at high temperatures. Almost all major problems are associated with progressive oil consumption at mileage 120 plus, and if you ignore the problem and the more. So when switching to cheaper oils, there is every chance to bring the consumption to 2 liters per thousand with guaranteed killed. Catalytic converters and lambda probes. Often the cause of problems is trivial. The crankcase ventilation system is clogged, the diaphragm is torn or the valve is stuck. And the motor either starts leaking oil or just pulls it into the intake. Wear of oil caps affects less often. Here they almost do not fly off and work to the last, except that overheating can kill them before time. The piston group is relatively resourceful, and oil consumption due to ring clogging usually appears after problems with VKG or when the mileage exceeds 250. The timing mechanism is well refined, so even chains that have been ringing for a long time usually don't slip unless you rev the engine to the cutoff. Most problems are solved by cleaning or replacing the tensioners and replacing the calipers, and the chains themselves last noticeably longer. This allows to get away with little blood at the first repairs and extends the resource of most of the mechanism for 200,000. From serious disadvantages, it is necessary to pay attention to the valve Zakixarovka. This is not only a strong drop in power after 100,000 mileage, up to 200 horsepower with a fully serviceable fuel system and piston group, but also likely scoring due to the ingress of pieces of coke between the piston and cylinder. Cleaning of the intake is now well established, inexpensive, and it is not worth to bring the motor to such a condition. I would like to emphasize that the motor is not bad for tuning fans. There are turbo kits and firmware modifications for it, and their potential of boosting is up to 500 forces. V8. It is difficult to say something good about the Motor 4.2 FSI. As with the first generation, it's not very stable. The aluminized coating of cylinders is delicate, poorly combines with direct injection, high operating temperature and lightweight block. As an example of application of high technology, the engine is beautiful, but it is rather useful as a blank for a fancy table from the cylinder block. In theory, if we imagine that a lucile coating does not scuff, then the life of the piston group is conditionally infinite, and there is no wear. But a lucile always scuffs. The best variant of the 4.2 motor is a quality cast iron block, and qualitatively and completely, they are unique cases of economy. When one row was cast iron. The list of problems is not exhausted by a lucile. There is a very capricious timing and quickly clogging due to unsuccessful crankcase ventilation inlet. The average prices for the complex bringing to mind can exceed 300 to 500,000. It is not surprising that there are very few cars with this motor. There were few people willing to buy a new car with it, and even fewer willing to maintain it after warranty. Hybrid version has a trimmed to 3 liters and 6 cylinders version of the 4.2 motor, but with a compressor, indexes CGEA, CGFA, and CJTA. Its character is more interesting, but 3.0 TFSI motors were among the most capricious on Audi. We should not forget about it. All attempts to remove the problems by lowering the operating temperature, reconfiguring the software or changing the oil brand eventually failed. Potential of engines on tuning is excellent. On resource, absolutely no. Diesel engines. V6. A great many cars are equipped with 3.0 diesel engines. They can be divided into 2 groups. Before restyling, these are Casa SSD Carter motors with an output of 204 to 240 horsepower and more powerful CRCA CJMA 260 to 262 horsepower. After the restyling, the engines were significantly updated. In fact, only more powerful variants remained in service, and low force ones were replaced by new variants CVVA CVWA, unified with high force ones by piston group and cylinder block completely and having the same recirculation system and intake. The engine is considered to be quite reliable despite the high complexity of construction and the location of complex timing on the flywheel side. But with age, more and more cars with typical sore spots require their solution. Such trifles as rattling thermal shields, leaks of the cooling system T in the block of the first generation of diesels, oil leaks. In the block of the second generation, oil leaks from the seals of injectors, clogged throttles, the restyle already has 2 of them. And pipes, turbine sweating oil, cracking of chains when the calipers are worn. In pre-styles, the vortex flaps and their drive caused a lot of trouble. Diesel engines after restyling have dramatically increased chances of fuel equipment failures due to dying low pressure pumps in their fuel tank, because of increased pressure in the system. A dying pump drives chips already into the fuel injector with understandable consequences. Which is more reliable, the old generation or the new generation? In general, there is no big difference, but the new fuel equipment is more vulnerable, but the power is noticeably higher. V8, the 4.2 diesel engine of the CKDA series, is seriously different from the 3-liter engines. The only things in common are the basic design. Cast iron as block material, timing, and piston group elements. Pistons are different. Rings and pins are the same, and the cylinder head design with common elements. From serious differences, a completely different intake and exhaust, because there are 2 turbines Garrett GTB 1749VZ, and not one. Big GTB 2260VZK, as on the 3-liter. The cooling system and the entire vacuum system are completely different. There are 2 control units. In general, despite the unification, the engine is completely different. From the general problems, timing life is about 200,000 kilometers, which is a little more than that of V6. Further fail mainly tensioners and calipers, but since the price of works exceeds the price of spare parts, usually change all at once. Well and fuel equipment with piezo injectors here is as gentle, but injectors are 8, not 6, they work in a greater range of loads. And the load of the fuel injector and booster pumps is higher, which causes significantly more problems in this part. The EGR system is also more complicated, more loaded, and the intake is getting clogged at a rapid pace. Turbines are low, at the bell of the automatic transmission, so the electro-actuators and flaps of variable geometry of turbine sour. Quite often, and it is difficult and expensive to diagnose and change them. The potential of the motor is not bad. Stock 320 to 340 horsepower can be easily transformed into 370 to 380, but the majority of cars will never show even passport power after 5 years of operation. Only the most careful owners, who are not lazy to change the pipes and clean the intake, monitor the work of supercharger and their state of particulate filters, as well as regularly do pressure testing, the motor will work as it should. Part original price of non-original 2-engine radiator 303 62218 loser 9 662 Nissan's 13 310 timing. Chain 3 0 TDI medium 12 738 Febby 9 963 Swag 11 707 0 TDI timing kit not available Sat 32 221 medium chain 3 0 chain caliper bar 3 151 Oscar 592 top ran 2 347 top left tensioner 10 702 hands prize 4 662 top ran 8 943 0 TDI 93 898 Bosch 96 400 turbine 3 0 TDI 223 910 Garrett 201 924 drone cartridge 12 399 to take or not to take. If you take the 6-cylinder version of the Touareg, things look pretty good. Especially if you develop a good habit of doing everything proactively. Change the oil, wash the air tanks, clean the interior, treat corrosion. This car has a good reserve of durability. Potentially it can go 300 and 400 and more kilometers. If you want exotics and a V8, well, at least we warned you. In conclusion, the Volkswagen Touareg II, with its impressive mileage, remains a robust choice for those seeking a reliable SUV. Its pneumatic suspension ensures a smooth ride, while the cold automatic transmission offers seamless shifting. Coupled with the powerful V6 engine, this vehicle delivers both performance and comfort. Whether you're navigating city streets or tackling off-road adventures, the Touareg II stands the test of time, proving that it is still very much alive and ready for the road ahead. Thank you for watching, and we hope this insight helps you in your automotive journey.